You've probably noticed it, right? The word narcissist is, well, it's everywhere. It's all over social media, it's how we describe our exes, our bosses, basically anyone who seems a little too into themselves. But what are we really talking about? Today, we're going to cut through all that noise and get to the heart of what narcissistic personality disorder actually is.
And hey, that's not just a feeling, it's a real trend. A psychiatrist, Dr. Elvin Ganawin, pointed out that clips about NPD are the things that get shared and go viral the most. Now, on one hand, that's great for awareness, but on the other, the term is being thrown around so much that it's starting to lose its actual clinical meaning. So let's fix that.
All right, let's get past the TikTok diagnoses and the buzzwords. What's the real line between someone who just has a few narcissistic traits and someone who has the actual clinical disorder? Because trust me, the difference is huge, and it's so important to understand.
Okay, this right here is the key. Look, we all have moments where we're a little selfish or we feel proud of ourselves. Those are just traits. It's human. But NPD, the disorder, that's a whole different ballgame. It's not situational. It's a deep, pervasive pattern that shows up everywhere, in all parts of their life. It's this compulsive, desperate need to be important all the time. And it leaves a trail of genuine harm and distress for the people around them.
So here's the official clinical definition, and I want you to really zero in on a few key phrases here. Long-term pattern, this isn't a bad mood, it's a constant. Exaggerated feelings of self-importance, an excessive need for admiration, and maybe the most telling part, a profound lack of empathy. This is a fundamental, deeply ingrained way of seeing the world and the people in it.
So where does something like this even come from? Well, experts usually point to two main paths in childhood that seem like total opposites. On one path, you have extreme neglect or humiliation, which creates this frantic need to prove you're worthy. And on the other, you have the golden child, who was put on a pedestal and praised for everything. But here's the fascinating part. Both roads lead to the exact same place, a really deep, gnawing insecurity at their core. Okay, so what does this actually look like in a relationship? Because NPD isn't just a collection of random behaviors. It follows a script, a predictable, toxic, and incredibly damaging pattern. And honestly, recognizing this pattern is your first line of defense.
So it almost always starts out like a fairy tale. This phase is called love bombing, and it's just this overwhelming storm of affection and attention. It feels incredible. But then phase 2 kicks in, isolation. They start to slowly, sometimes very subtly, wedge you away from your friends, from your family, from your entire support system. And that, right there, sets the stage for the final step, total control.
And this is what that isolation tactic sounds like. It's a classic line. They take your perfectly normal need for friends and twist it into an attack on them. It's a guilt trip, pure and simple, designed to make you believe that your entire universe should begin and end with them.
Here are a few more really specific red flags to watch for. Listen very, very carefully to how they talk about their exes. If every single one of them was crazy or the problem, that is a huge warning sign. Other tactics? Going silent for days after a fight, that's passive aggression, controlling every penny, and of course, being an absolute master of making you feel guilty for everything.
Wow, this phrase is just a masterclass in manipulation. It completely flips reality on its head. See, the problem isn't their behavior, it's your reaction to their behavior. They are literally telling you that the price of peace in this relationship is your silence and your obedience.
You know, the first question people on the outside always ask is, well, why doesn't that person just leave? And it's a fair question, but the answer is so complex. Let's really get into the psychological traps that make leaving feel nearly impossible. This question, why don't they just leave, really misunderstands the situation. It's not as simple as walking out the door. People caught in these relationships have often been systematically taken apart, emotionally, financially, and sometimes even physically, until escape feels like it's just not an option.
And here's a really crucial piece of the trap. The victim often has their own history, their own unmet emotional needs. So for someone who maybe never felt seen or valued as a kid, that initial love bombing doesn't set off alarm bells. It feels like they've finally found the unconditional love they've been searching for their whole life. And that trap gets built brick by brick with specific tactics. They create financial dependency so you literally can't afford to go anywhere. They've already cut you off from the friends and family who could help you. And day by day, they chip away at your self-worth until you start to believe you're the problem. They'll even twist social or religious beliefs to convince you it's your duty to stay and endure it.
Okay,
We have defined the disorder, and we've looked at the trap. Now, let's pivot and talk about the solution, because if you or someone you know is in this spot, there are smart, strategic things you can do to survive, and eventually to get free.
Look, the reality is, not everybody can just pack a bag and walk out tomorrow. It's just not that simple. But that does not mean you're powerless. The first, most important step is to stop reacting emotionally and start thinking strategically. You have to understand the game they're playing so you can start protecting yourself.
So here's the playbook. First, you have to accept who and what you're dealing with. Stop trying to justify or explain yourself. It's pointless. They will always twist it. Number 2, secretly, and I mean secretly, start saving your own money. Number 3, if they start complaining about how hard their life is, you have to play the game of being even more miserable. And finally, never ever announce your wins or achievements. They'll see it as a threat. This is all about playing defense until you can finally make your move.
This one is absolutely critical, especially if you're dealing with meddling in-laws, which happens a lot in these dynamics. You have to draw a hard line in the sand. Your partner needs to be able to say, "This is my family now. You have a problem, you talk to me, not my spouse." Protecting that new family unit has to be non-negotiable.
When you boil it all down, it really just comes to this. A healthy partner, a healthy relationship helps you grow. It's a source of peace and support. A toxic one forces you into a constant fight for your own survival. If your relationship feels like a battle every single day, well, that's the only sign you need.
And that really brings us to the last, most important thought. The words we use for ourselves matter so much. A victim is something that happens to you, but a survivor is a choice you make. It's the decision to learn the rules of the game, to play it smart, and to start the process of taking your life back. And that choice, ultimately, is yours.